Okay, everyone, please be seated. Okay, welcome to the second council meeting of the day, and we move straight to item 1, apologies. I've received apologies from Councillor Joan Sharp, Julie Day, Liz McMullen, John O'Shea, Tommy Mulvenna. Tommy's now arrived before he tells us, but so are there any further apologies? No. So we'll now move on to item 2, declaration of interests. Can I remind members, if they have any registrable or non-registrable interests in matters appearing on the agenda and the nature of the interest, they must verbally declare in respect of any items of business to be discussed at this meeting and the nature of such interests. You are also invited to disclose any dispensation from the requirement to declare any registrable and or non-registrable interests that have been granted to you in respect of any matters appearing on the agenda. Those members should also complete the card circulated and return it to the receptacle located on the desk of the Democratic Services Officer before leaving tonight's meeting. To make members aware, as motion 1 may have an impact on a number of members, if they are affected, they will need to declare personal, non-registrable interest and complete the card in front of them. There is no need to leave the meeting, and for the purposes of saving time, members do not need now to stand up and declare that interest. They can choose to declare it or simply fill the card in before they leave tonight's meeting. So are there any declarations of interest? Yes, Councillor Thill.
On item 6 on motion 3, I have a relative who has Parkinson. I'll be leaving.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further declarations? Sorry, well spot. Minutes. The next item on the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of July. Can I ask that these minutes be accepted? Thank you very much. Okay. We are now moving on to item number 4, proposed appointments to the Audit Committee of the Co-opted Chair and Deputy Chair. Can I ask Dame Norma Redfern to move the report, please?
Chair, I think I'm moving in a second.
So you're going to be second, Councillor Johnson.
This report sets out recommendations to Executive Director. Councillor McMullen was supposed to, but I won't. This report sets out recommendations for Executive Director of Resources, acting as capacity Section 151 officer, on appointments to the positions of Co-opted Chair and Deputy Vote. Previous Chair left the role in March 24 and completed the maximum term of office of 10 years. And the Mayor wrote to Malcolm Wilkinson expressing our thanks and appreciation for his service and contribution on behalf of the Council. We'd also further like to thank that thanks and appreciation. A recruitment exercise was conducted over the summer and received a strong response following deliberation. The recruitment panel agreed on proposed appointments, which is considered by an audit committee with the best mix of skills, experience and knowledge required in the short, medium and long term. Following recruitment, the exercises were required within the Constitution. The Chief Executive and the Director of Resources, acting in their capacity as Authorities 1 Section 151 officer, recommended the following appointments. Dr. Stuart Green, the existing corporate member and deputy chair of the committee, be appointed as chair of the audit committee. This will provide continuity of service and mean the committee will have a chair with a firm understanding of the type of business and dealt with by the committee. Proposal also offers the benefit of a chair who is understanding of those matters which require historic knowledge, such as delays in sign-off for the authority's accounts. Lisa Sproat is appointed as deputy chair. Lisa is a resident of North Tyneside, qualified accountant and currently Chief Financial Officer of a leading national college. She's heavily involved with the Corporation Board and Audit Committee, which provides her with a very different perspective on governance and risk management skills. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Questions? Well, can I invite the mover of the report to exercise their right to reply if they so wish? No? Will therefore go directly to the vote. Can we open the vote, please? Okay, can we close the vote there? And that vote was 57 in favour, none against, so that was unanimous. Thank you. Could I just ask, we seem to be having some particular problems with the sound tonight, so can people please move the mics a little closer to them so we can hear people are speaking? Okay, now move to item 5, Children and Young People's Plan. Can I ask Councillor Early to move the motion, please?
Thank you, Chair. We're actually going to withdraw this item because we need to consider some further changes to the plan, which will then have to go back to Cabinet and it will be returned at a later date to Council.
Okay, and I believe I have to ask the seconder of the motion that if they're happy for that, this motion to be withdrawn for tonight.
I'm happy, Chair.
Okay. That motion, that report's therefore withdrawn from tonight's agenda. Item 6, we move on to motions. We have 3 valid motions have been received and are detailed in the agenda. Please note details of the legal and financial implications of each of the motions have been circulated to all members prior to this meeting. I would like to remind members that the electronic voting system is now in operation for all votes. Motion 1 is signed by Councillor Bones, Councillor John Johnson, Councillor Dr. Ollie Scargill, Councillor J. Bartoli, Councillor McAlpine and Councillor Lilly. Can I now invite Councillor J. Bartoli, I presume, to move the motion, please?
Thank you, Chair. I think before I move this motion, I know what the response from the party opposite is going to be, as we've seen this evening. It's a complete disregard for the pensioners of both Tyneside. They're pushing the last issue down to November, which will be far too late for the residents who are already suffering. But the motion I'm proposing this evening seeks to exempt pensioners from Labour's new garden waste charge. While I recognise the financial considerations that come with this exemption, I believe we must look at the bigger picture, how we prioritise our spending and support our most vulnerable residents. In 2013, a similar charge for garden waste collection was introduced by the then Conservative administration, but was met with widespread opposition. The public made their views clear, and the council then, showing true leadership, decided to reverse the decision and refund the residents who had already paid. It was a significant moment of listening to the community and acting in their best interests. At the time, key figures within the Labour group, including the now Mayor Norma Redfern and Councillor Sandra Graham, voiced their concerns. Councillor Graham criticised the charge and Norma Redfern referred to it as a complete shambles, emphasising the need to actually listen to residents. Their objections resonated with the sentiment that basic services should be accessible and affordable for all, particularly for those who might struggle with additional costs. If they stood against these charges then I trust they will agree with us today that they need to protect pensioners from a similar burden. We now face a similar situation. The proposed £30 charge might seem small to some, but for our pensioners already grappling with the rising living costs and reduced financial support, it's another strain on their limited income. Back in 2013, the decision was reversed because it was the right thing to do. And I believe we have the opportunity to demonstrate the same courage and compassion today. I understand that some of my Labour colleagues may cite budget constraints as a reason to oppose this exemption. However, I must point out that when there's a will, the money can be found. This Labour council has found 1.3 million to spend on public sector decarbonisation schemes, £750,000 on climate change initiatives, 1.4 million on a new transport hub, £500,000 on public realm improvements in North Shields alone. These examples show that our priorities can be adjusted and funding can be secured when the cause is deemed important enough. We must not copy the mistakes being made by the new Labour government, where millions are being spent on vanity projects and climate change initiatives, while many pensioners are left struggling to pay their basic heating bills. Our pensioners deserve to be seen as a priority. They're not asking for luxuries, but for a simple exemption that acknowledges their contributions and supports their well-being. Let us not make the same mistakes we reversed in 2013. Let's heed the words of Norma Redfern and Sandra Graham from that time and act in the best interest of our community's most vulnerable residents. Today, we can demonstrate that our priorities lie with supporting our residents, particularly those who are most vulnerable. By exempting pensioners from this charge, we show that our council is guided not just by numbers on a spreadsheet, but by the principles of fairness, compassion, and community. Let's make the right choice, vote in favour of this motion and show our pensioners that we will support them, not just with words, but with meaningful actions. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McGinty, I believe you're seconding this motion.
Yes, I'd like to speak. I recently spoke to an elderly resident in my ward who said to me that she's absolutely dreading the prospect of winter and the cold weather coming. She is a widower in her late 70s and isn't eligible for her winter fuel payment this year. She said she'll be too scared to put on the heating, especially as there is a price increase in October.
Excuse me, Councillor McGinty, are you sure you're speaking to the?
Yeah,
I'm coming to it.
Oh,
yeah.
sorry. Carry on.
Thank you. As there is a price increase in October, but more so, she is worried about getting sick and ending up in hospital with pneumonia. She feels let down by the policy and that it has been brought in very quickly. And the fact that she lives in an extremely cold part of the UK is making her feel very worried.
Councillor McGinty.
She is I'm coming to it.
Well, can you come to it now, please? Because
she is also panicking about potentially losing her 25% single person discount in regards to council payments. It's shameful that Labour have decided to vote against her tonight.
Can you stop there?
This is why I will be supporting this motion.
You do know the rules. Can you just stop there? You're moving a second in a motion around the brown bins. If you're not moving that, then there's nobody seconding the motion.
On a point of order, Chair, the motion specifically refers to pensioners losing the winter fuel allowance this winter. And as a result, Councillor McGinty's points on the winter fuel allowance are directly relevant to the motion.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that. We're talking about whether or not this motion is about whether there should be special exemptions for that item.
On the basis that they have lost their winter fuel payments in recognition of the unique challenges faced by pensioners, particularly relating to the winter fuel allowance, as in the motion. So it's directly relevant to the motion, the impact the winter fuel changes are having on pensioners.
Well, I think you've made a point now, I believe, or you've seconded the motion. Okay. Well, then, therefore, if you've seconded the motion, we can now invite members to speak to the motion. Is there anybody who wishes to make any comment? Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Chair. The introduction of a £30 charge to households for an opt-in garden waste collection service was approved by full council at its budget setting meeting on the 15th of February 2024 as part of the 2024-2028 financial planning and budget process. I note Councillor Bones was part of the budget scrutiny group who did not raise any objection to the charge, or put forward an alternative budget at
Point
the
of
time.
clarification, Chair.
I know
We
that,
opposed this and the Conservative group opposed it at the
please
time.
don't speak when I'm trying to speak. Thank you. This is exactly been the downfall of the previous Tory government, trying to bring in unfunded in-year budget spend. The £30 charge is the lowest of our 6 local authority neighbours. Residents are still able to dispose of garden waste for free at the Household Waste and Recycling Centre. This operates 364 days a year from 8 AM to 8 PM. The authority subsidises home compost bins. Residents are able to share subscriptions with neighbours, friends and family if they don't use them much. The Neat Streets scheme offers council house tenants 2 free collections of bulk waste a year, and this can be used for garden waste. Residents are still able to dispose of garden waste in their normal home refuse bin, not the recycling bin, the normal green bin. The latter of this point is particularly important, as no resident is to be refused a service to remove garden waste at the curbside, as long as it is presented in an acceptable bin. It is also important to note that socio-economic disadvantage is not exclusive to pensioners, as families are also very hardly impacted by rises in everything that we have at the present time, nor does it apply to all pensions. The introduction of an exemption for all pensioners is likely to benefit some residents who are in a significantly better financial position than other residents and families who would not be offered an exemption. Additionally, this is not a blanket approach taken for other chargeable service that the council offers. There would need to be a robust administrative system introduced to validate the eligibility of households to receive this service. We are not of a mind to go down this road, as we have budgeted carefully, prudently, and we will continue to keep our charge as low as we possibly can. In 2022, the national average for a charge for a brown bin was £42. The world has moved on since 2012. Life is very hard for our residents and we accept that. But we can't have a 2-tier system. And this is not a proposal that the council can accept. And we will be voting against this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Giabartoli, I believe you.
While I support this motion, I want to add it's a sad indictment of our Labour MPs and councillors that we are forced into this position of having to propose this at all. It's deeply disappointing that the councils across the country are now left with the responsibility of cleaning up the mess created by the new Labour government, particularly when it comes to protecting our pensioners. The Labour government recently decided to restrict the winter fuel payment to only those pensioners receiving means-tested benefits, leaving millions of older people, including tens of thousands here in North Tyneside, without the annual winter fuel support that they rely on. This decision is not only unfair but dangerously short-sighted, particularly in an area like ours where pensioners already face some of the harshest winter conditions in the country. It's heartbreaking to know this policy will force many pensioners into the impossible dilemma of choosing whether to heat or eat or put the bins out during the coldest months. While the Chancellor claims that this change targets those most in need, it overlooks at the thousands of pensioners who sit just above the cut-off for pension credit and now be left in the cold, literally. What adds insult to injury is the hypocrisy of our local MPs who are pushing this policy forward. Our very own Sir Alan Campbell claimed nearly £4,500 for his utility bill in 2023 alone. Yet he has voted in favour of stripping up to £300 a year for some of our poorest pensioners. It's appalling that those who can claim thousands expenses show no hesitation, taking away vital support for those who need it most. But with free gear Kia at the helm, there is no surprise. We know that North Tyneside is one of the coldest regions in the country. Without heating, where heating is not a luxury but a necessity, the winter fuel payments have been a lifeline for many of our older residents. Removing this will undoubtedly place them at significant risk. They're making it worse by removing the ability to have brown bins with ease. While we acknowledge that the council has agreed to renew the household support fund for this year and a step in the right direction, does not address the immediate needs of pensioners who have been cut off from vital assistance. We find ourselves in a position where our council must stretch resources further to protect the most vulnerable in our community. We have the ability tonight to support those struggling to afford the basics, which in this case means keeping warm during winter. I urge you all to support this motion, not only because it is the right thing to do, but because it sends a clear message. We will not stand idle while our pensioners suffer due to poor decisions made in Westminster. We will continue to fight for dignity and well-being of our older residents. Let us support this motion today and show our pensioners that we are here for them, even if the Labour government is not. And after today's debacle, it's clear that the Labour Council is not on their side either.
Councillor. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Chairman. Expenditure is always a matter of political choice. This motion offers a very sensible way of assisting older people who face a very difficult winter. I have no hesitation in supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Councillor McAlpine.
Thank you, Chair. As a representative of a ward with a significant retired population, I'll be supporting this motion and I urge other members to follow suit. Residents are already concerned about the incoming changes to winter fuel eligibility. With the energy price cap set to arrive very soon, taking household bills with it, the coming months already look bleak for the pensioners of North Tyneside. That's why I'll be supporting this motion.
Okay. Councillor Bones.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to come back on 2 points that Councillor Graham mentioned in her speech. She firstly said that the group didn't oppose the charge at the time, and that's absolutely incorrect. The Conservative group voted against the budget and significant concerns were raised at budget scrutiny about the issue. Councillor Graham also said that North Tyneside is a very different place to where it was 12 years ago. And we agree it is a very different place. The difference is that in 2012, we had a Conservative mayor that listened to people on this issue and took a tough decision to U-turn and keep brown bins free. And now we've got a tone-deaf mayor in lockstep with the Prime Minister, ignoring residents just so she can have another honour. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bones. Councillor Carl Johnson.
Councillor Lilly indicated before me, Chair. I think Councillor Lilly indicated long before me. But I'm happy. Councillor David Lilly's had his hand up for a while, Chair.
Oh, sorry, Councillor. I didn't see you.
No problem. Thank you, Chair. I'll not be long. I just think in light of the decisions that have been taken nationally to rob pensioners of their £3,300 winter fuel allowance, which wasn't opposed by our local MPs, Alan Campbell, Mary Glindon, Emma Foodie or Catherine McKinnell, or by local Labour councillors tonight, I feel the least we can do is to offer this service free to our poorer residents. Listening to Councillor Graham say we're the lowest in the region, being the lowest doesn't mean to say it's right. And poorer pensioners are unable to easily access the refuse tip. It's also interesting to listen to Councillor Graham when she mentions money and budgets, but never once mentions the welfare of our poorer residents. I will be supporting this motion tonight because I feel we need to stand up for the pensioners who are having their pockets picked by the Labour government nationally.
Thank you, Councillor Lilly. Councillor Carl Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We very much are in a different place than we were in 2012. In 2012, since then, the Conservative government cut £470 million worth of funding from this council. The disastrous Tory administration outsourced services costing this council millions of pounds. It's a very different position to we are now. In 2012, no other councils were charging for the service when we went to introduce it. Now, every other council, the other council in the LS7, are all charging significantly higher than we are. I hope the Conservative group will be writing to the Conservative leadership of Northumberland County Council to ask them to scrap the £30 charge for pensioners in Northumberland as well, Chair. This is not it's something that we like to do. We would love to exempt everybody from this charge, but we've got to be realistic with the financial realities of this council. We've had year after year of cut from the Conservative government, and we have in-year budget this year. We set budget last year. Tories didn't decide to bother to put their own amendment to or their own objection. We have in-year cost of £14 million in the red this year. It's a very difficult financial year, taking unfunded, uncommitted, unspending decisions in year is not the way how to run a council, Chair. So we can't support this. If the Conservatives want to do this, you know, there's a opportunity for a budget in February for them to bring this forward. I'm sure this year they will put a budget forward. I'm sure this will be welcomed in it, Chair, but we can't support this.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Are there any further members who wish to speak? Yes, Councillor Thirlby.
Thank you, Chair. Every time I come to full council, things get stranger and stranger and weirder and weirder. We now have a Conservative group that cares about people on low incomes. It's incredible that we now have a Conservative group who care about people losing their benefits. I think this is just politics from the Conservative group. And I think the residents of North Tyneside aren't stupid. You know, they've seen what's happened for the last 14 years. They've seen you defend the last 14 years of Conservative misrule. People aren't stupid. You know, they can see through this politics. You know, I say this every meeting, there's a reason, you know, there's all of us, and there's a reason there's only a few views. You know, so, you know, I think just grow up, you know, people aren't stupid.
Thank you, Councillor Thirlby. Dame Norma Redfern.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would just like to say to everyone, this is something that we want to do, to be quite honest. But since your government cut our budget year after year after year at millions of pounds, and if you remember what Liz Truss did to the country, you can understand why we're all struggling with our finances. And I think the residents understand, as far as I'm concerned, that at the end of the day, we have to make some very difficult choices, and we'll be making more, Councillor Bones.
Thank you, Dame Redfern. Can I call Councillor Hannah Johnson?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it just feels like a bit of a cheek from the Conservative group, to be honest, to talk about, you know, the Labour government making a mess when the Labour government is currently clearing up the mess that the Tories left for them. We have been left. Nobody ever wants to bring in a charge like this. No council does. No group in leadership or opposition would ever want to bring in a charge. However, we have been left in a position, like the other Councillor Johnson said, where we have been down £470 million because of the previous Conservative government. So we've been left with absolutely no choice but to do with this. If we want to provide residents with a service, with good services, which we do, if we want to keep things like our leisure centres, our libraries open, which we do, then we haven't had a choice. People can share their bins if they want to, lowering the cost. Like Councillor Graham said, they can take their waste to the household waste recycling centre, or they shouldn't advocate this, but putting it in their green bin. They can do that. However, what they cannot do, what we can't afford to do is not bring in this charge, because we want to keep the services together and we want to keep the council running. Thank you.
Councillor Johnson. As there's no further members indicated to wish to speak, I'll give the right to reply to Councillor Giabarto. Lewis Barton, sorry.
I think that's a bit of an insult to my son, mistake. But I'm sure I take that better than him, Chair. If I could just first of all answer Councillor Thirlby, who said he finds it strange tonight to see the Conservative Party caring about the poorest and most vulnerable. Well, by contrast, we find it strange to see a Labour Party that clearly hates them, doesn't want to do anything for them tonight. I think the choice that both Councillor Graham and Councillor Johnson mentioned choices, and they're right. This was a choice. This was a choice tonight to show that we care about our pensioners, or it was a choice to doggedly go on following our glorious leader in Westminster and hammering them. We could find 1.3 million to spend on public sector decarbonisation. We could find £750,000 to spend on climate change. We could find 1.4 million on a new transport hub, but mysteriously we couldn't find this little bit of extra money to show our pensioners we actually cared. I think tonight has been the most shameful display I've seen from the Labour Party since I've been a councillor, and I hope they leave here with their heads hung low. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Barton. Can I now move this to the vote, please? Can we open a vote? Once voted, can we close the vote, please? That was 9 votes for and 48 against. So that motion is defeated. Okay, we now move on to motion 2, signed by councillors L. Bartoli, Johnson, J. Bartoli, Dr. Scargill, Councillor Lilly and Councillor McGinty. Can I invite Councillor Bones to move the motion, please?
Thank you, Chair. Does that work? Following the last meeting of full council, where the Labour Party opposite blocked our request for more CCTV to tackle fly tipping across the borough, the Conservative...
Sorry, Councillor Bones, can you put your mic on, please? Oh.
I'll try this one again. That one work better? Okay. Following the last meeting of full council, where the Labour Party opposite blocked our request for more CCTV to tackle fly tipping across the borough, the Conservative group have been working hard to come up with other solutions to fly tipping, which might be acceptable to the Mayor. That is, of course, assuming she's interested in tackling the issue, which at this stage can't be taken as given. The motion follows in the footsteps of Newcastle City Council, who hold pop-up recycling centres across the city, a scheme which the Labour cabinet member there has described as hugely successful. Given many of our residents, particularly those in the northwest, are many miles away from the Howden Recycling Centre, this would be hugely beneficial to them. We believe it would have a significant impact on fly tipping. The cabinet member in Newcastle believes it has had a significant impact on fly tipping. So the only question left to answer is, do this mayor and the members opposite care enough about the cleanliness of our borough to support it? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bones. I believe Councillor McAlpine, you're seconding this motion.
Second, and reserve the right to speak, please.
Are there any other members who wish to speak on this motion? Councillor Graham, do you indicate?
Thank you, Chair. Newcastle City Council has indeed been running pop-up recycling centres as a trial since January 2023, with the aim of capturing recyclable materials at the heart of their communities to increase recycling rates and reduce on-street fly tipping. Fly tipping is both a national and a local concern, and there is no evidence to suggest that fly tipping is committed because of a lack of access to disposal facilities in North Tyneside. We don't experience the levels or profile of fly tipping that some other local authorities experience, particularly those in more rural authorities. We know the areas of focus across the borough and take a multi-pronged approach to tackling fly tipping, including deploying dedicated fly tipping hit squads to remove waste, deploying rapid response teams as part of the council's Neat Streets programme, free bulky waste collections for housing tenants to encourage responsible waste disposal, estate cleanups where we remove bulky waste free of charge, and an educational approach in resident engagement to support understanding of how to dispose of waste correctly. Providing residents with several household waste streams for responsible disposal, general recycling, green waste, curbside collections. Dedicated environmental wardens who patrol the borough, investigate fly tipping for evidence and issue enforcement notices where appropriate. Mobile CCTV cameras that are moved around hotspot areas to support evidence capturing for prosecution. Taking enforcement action against individuals caught fly tipping. Exploring and applying for any grant funding available for local authorities to support this area of work. And in December 2023, we submitted a grant application to DEFRA as part of their fly tipping intervention fund. Part of our project design was to purchase skips to use in our identified hotspot areas, Wallsend and North Shields, to provide pop-up methods of waste disposal to enhance our existing multi-layered approach. We have been successful in this grant application and are already in the process of purchasing skips for this process. We plan to roll this out to wider wards within the borough, intelligence-led, alongside this project. In addition, we have submitted a £10,000 funding application to replace and improve the on-street recycling bins along the coast and introduce some litter picking stations, and are awaiting the outcome of this application. And the council's waste strategy follows the waste hierarchy and promotes reuse and a circular economy before recycling or disposal. So we list local charities who accept donations, who wouldn't ordinarily be recycled at the curbside. We're also currently developing a map of all reuse and circular economy organisations in the borough. We support organisations and communities to bring new life to materials through repairing and redistributing, such as Bike Centre, the HWRC, and we work with schools and charities to reuse materials that otherwise have been sent for reprocessing. We run an extensive recycling campaign through the council's social media channels, Residents Magazine, the Action on Climate Change campaign, advertising on bin wagons and attendance at events. And we target areas of low recycling participation using initiatives like school assemblies and playground pledges to make people aware of target recycling materials and signing them up to our wash, swash and recycling packages. We have a data-driven approach to all of our work to protect the local environment, and we understand where key locations in relation to fly tipping are. We've got the electrical recycling points, the vape points, the battery recycling points, and they're all mapped on the council website. And so we will not be supporting this motion as the work is already in hand. Thank you.
Are there any further members who wish to speak on this motion? Scargill.
Thank you, Chair. I'm still not really sure why we couldn't explore a scheme like Newcastle has, and where it's looking like it's been quite successful. Perhaps we don't have the dynamic and forward-thinking administration that we should here in North Tyneside. Maybe Sandra Game is not experiencing the problem because perhaps the streets around her in Whitley Bay are fine. But I would invite her to come and have a walk around some of the back streets in the estates near me, where you can regularly see lots of fly tipping that will not be sent to the recycling centres because of a lack of access. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scargill. Councillor Carl Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the motion's a bit just for word salad, review, investigate, look at, when actually some of the stuff we're already doing, we're getting on with it. Why delay this by 6 months for us to sit there and review it to decide that we should do what we're already getting on and doing, Chair? Again, it also makes an unfunded commitment in the motion, which once again, you know, that's what the budget process is for. We will continue to innovate and look at certain ways. As Councillor Graham outlined, in our hotspot areas, we are already looking at a similar process as identified. You know, different things work different places. If the Tories are saying Newcastle councils are successful and they're saying that, you know, not regular visit in Newcastle, so I wouldn't be able to comment on that. But yeah, we are already doing most of the things in here. All this would do would delay and dither and take time out and then decide what we actually get round back to what we're actually going to get on and do. So we can't support the motion for that reasons. We're unfunded commitments and just delaying the process and delaying getting on and fixing issues that matter to residents. Sure.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Frank Lott, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think we're starting to see a trend develop in that this group, the administration, works hard to prepare and present and then implement a budget, while the group opposite spend a year chipping away at it and suggesting interesting, thought-provoking schemes which all have additional costs attached to them. Perhaps they would do us the good service of presenting their own budget next January, February, so that we can hold them to that throughout the course of the year.
Thank you, Councillor Frank Lott. As there are no further members indicated, Councillor, do you want to speak, Councillor Lee?
Yes, Chair. Just I might be getting a bit dafter as I get older, but with the supplementary paperwork here, talks about financial implications, and it says there are no direct financial implications associated with this I beg your pardon. You're right. I am getting as I'm getting older. I've misread it. I've withdrawn my statement. Sorry.
Agreed.
Thank you, councillor Lilly. Okay, as there are no further members had indicated to speak, councillor McAlpine, you did reserve your right. Oh, sorry. Yes, councillor.
Chair, sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, they keep saying here that you know, look at Newcastle's model. I work in the west end of Newcastle, and it's an absolute tip in the back of the end. So whatever they're doing isn't working.
Thank you. Now I think we'll go to you, councillor. Are you happy? Okay then. Okay, we'll go to the move of the motion, councillor Bones.
Thank you, Chair. We've just seen a wonderful example of Schrodinger's pop-up recycling centre, where Councillor Johnson says that it is both already underway and an unfunded financial commitment should we pass the motion. So it's either already underway or passing it would lead to an extra financial burden. It can't be both. Councillor Graham continued this trend by saying fly tipping wasn't an issue, but it was already something that we were doing all of in the motion. It, again, can't be both. I think one of the main parts of this motion is that we engage with the community and we engage in a consultation process with residents, local businesses and community groups to identify the areas of highest need and to find out where we should improve waste disposal services. It's really concerning that Councillor Graham thinks that she knows better than residents on this issue. Residents have to deal with this issue day in, day out, and she thinks fly tipping is not a problem. But as Councillor Scargill said, if you come to some of the streets in my ward or come to some of the streets in his ward, it's a huge problem, and residents won't be reassured that the cabinet member thinks that it's not an issue.
Thank you, councillor Bones. Okay, can we now move to the vote on that motion? Ask that you open the vote, please. All members have voted. Can we close the vote? Okay, the vote was 9 in favour and 48 against. That motion has fallen, or that, yes, that motion has fallen. So it's okay. We now move on to motion 3. Signed by councillors L. Bartoli, councillor Bones, councillor J. Bartoli, councillor McAlpine, councillor Lilly and councillor McGinty. Can I invite councillor Dr. Scargill to move the motion, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm very happy to move this motion tonight, which is designed to help some of the residents in our borough who struggle with mobility the most, and I trust it will garner cross-chamber support.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Johnson, I believe you're seconding this motion.
Yes, Chair. Second this motion. I'm sure it's something we can all get behind. Many of us will know someone affected by Parkinson's, and this is all about making sure they have access to disabled parking to improve their quality of life with this terrible condition. I'm asking all councillors to support tonight.
Okay. Can I now ask other members if they wish to speak? Councillor Carl Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. We were going to move an amendment in the spirit of, I did speak with Councillor Bones yesterday about this. We saw when we talked to legal on this, it was what we were going to amend was already covered with what could be covered within the motion. We just really want to stress that, yes, we absolutely agree on Parkinson's, but the other neurological conditions as well. We didn't want them to get sidetracked in this. So we just want to make sure that we send a letter and it's not just Parkinson's as a focus, all neurological conditions that can be general. Just that was our stress in this, but we're happy to support, Chair, after the.
Okay. Okay. Do you have a second for that amendment?
Chair, we're not amending. We were going to amend it, but after legal advice, sorry, going to amend. We were. That's not an amendment, Chair. We were going to amend it, but we said not because the legal advice was that was already covered in the amendment that we wrote.
Okay. So going with the motion as it stands. Okay. Are there any further members who wish to speak on this?
I would just like to say that I support this wholeheartedly. But, you know, medicine has gone very, very quickly since we decided where the blue badges were given years ago. And there'll be other areas where we should be looking at right across. Now, I don't know how we go about that, but I think it's really important. Just don't stop there. We need to look at other areas.
Yeah, Redfern. Okay, if there are no further members indicate to speak, I think we'll go back to Dr. Scargill. Sum up.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, we therefore move to the vote. Can I ask for open the vote, please? Okay, if all members have voted, can we close the vote there? Sorry? Oh. I have no comment. Okay, well, that vote is unanimous, 56 members in favour of the, so that motion is therefore carried. Thank you. Okay, we now move on to item 7, which is the chair's announcements. I have a few announcements to update you on tonight. Firstly, I would like to tell you of some of the events I have attended over the last few weeks. These have included many charities, community groups and organisations, as well as official civic events. Some have been formal, such as representing the council at commemorative events at the Cenotaph to honour veterans and those who took part in the events around D-Day. It was at one of these events that I met Ronald Cunningham, one of the veterans, and I was then delighted to be invited to join him and his family at his 100th birthday party. I also attended the 160th anniversary of St Paul's Church in Whitley Bay, and it was great to hear about all the work the church and its members do to support the local residents and help make Whitley Bay a better place to live. One of the most recent events I have attended was an event for International Day, which was truly inspiring. There were many people from many countries who came together to learn about one another's history, culture, and their foods. As you know, I always like to end my announcements on a good point, and today is no exception. I would therefore like to tell you all about my chosen charity as chair. This will be Acorns, which I know some of you will know is a charity based in North Shields and works to support and help those who are now or have been suffering from domestic abuse. The group offers many services across North Tyneside and Northumberland, but also supports other charities across the whole region. But one of the things that I found key was, and I'm very impressed with, is while the group obviously supports those directly impacted by the abuse, it also works hard to support the children and the young people from the families. This can make a huge difference as the person being abused can move away with support from the abuser. However, the children may be impacted for the rest of their lives. This may prevent them from making the most important decisions and making the most of their futures. I hope you all agree this is an important work, so I'll be contacting you all in the near future and asking for your support. Thank you very much. Now go on to item 8, the mayor's comments. Announcements.
I'd just like to make it very, very clear that regarding Mount Seton High School, nothing has been decided what system we'll be having in Whitley Bay. I know somebody rang me up and said the Tom were good in Whitley Bay because somebody had said something on Twitter or something about it going to a 2-tier system. Well, I'm sorry, that has not been decided at all. So I just have to make that very, very clear. Yes, we're looking at how to deal with the young children in Seton High School. We cannot have children sitting in classes where we can't even afford to put teachers. And you know now we don't have control of the schools. But it's very wrong if people to set rabbits going, upsetting families, saying that we're going to close the 3-tier system in Whitley Bay. how unfair to our residents is that. Secondly, I would just like to tell you, all those people who have been very unhappy with Capita for years, to be quite honest. We didn't outsource it. It was the previous administration that outsourced it. But I'm pleased to tell all you people who've been complaining, we've brought it back into the council. So let's hope things will improve in that area from now. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Dame Nolan. We now move on to item 8, questions by members of the council. There have been 8 valid questions received from members of the council. Question 1 by Councillor Lilly. Do you want to ask your question or take it as read?
Let's take it as read, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Hannah Johnson, I believe you are answering this.
Yes. Thank you for your question. The scheme at Broadway, Farringdon Road and Mass Lane roundabout originated following requests from local schools and school crossing patrols for crossing improvements of the junction. In response to the requests, officers carried out an assessment of the area which identified some improvement works in relation to safety and the condition of the junction. The purpose of the scheme was therefore to improve safety for pedestrians by improving the crossing facilities on Broadway. Following completion of the scheme, the council has received positive feedback from parents and members of the public. Thank you.
Okay, do you have a supplementary question?
Chair, yes. The new roundabout configuration has removed 4 filter left exits from the roundabout, removed the bus stop from a lay-by and placed it on the main road about 25 metres from the roundabout and about 15 metres from the crossing, resulting in regular long tailbacks caused by buses parked on the road over the crossing and over the roundabout onto the other side of the roundabout. So how can this be an improvement in either traffic flow or pedestrian safety? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I mean, I regularly use that road, given I've sort of lived just down there and my mum lives in that estate. So I have to be honest, I don't think I've once been caught up on the Broadway since it's been done. I know that Councillor Graham was just saying similar and lives around that area too. Obviously, whenever we do schemes like this, we keep an eye on what happens. And I can assure Councillor Lilly will be we'll be keeping an eye on the traffic flows around that area as well. Thank you.
Walk my dog 4 times a day down there and I've come across more traffic than you have on this thing.
Thank you. Question 2 is Councillor Bones. Do you wish to ask the question or take it as read?
I'll ask it, Chair. Thank you. Does the Mayor agree with Councillor Kerwin that councillors currently have to jump through endless hoops to get jobs done? And what discussions has she had regarding setting up new committees to allow councillors to better oversee the running of local services?
Redfern, a few answers for this.
Thank you, Chairman. I think, Councillor, you will know that I cannot agree. And you would know, asking that question, that I wouldn't agree with that, let's be honest. Well, I do not agree with that statement. In this borough, we have a system in place which allows councillors to be effective representatives of the people they serve. We have a group of council officers committed to ensuring the organisation is effective. And they do consider the politicians' opinions, believe it or not, despite the fact that some people think they don't. And I just want to say, once again, I have been elected 3 times with an increased majority. Do you honestly think I'd be sitting here if things in this borough were so bad? Let's be honest. Let's be honest about this. In the past, we have invested significantly to ensure councillors and members of the public are able to see results and get things changed. The customer first team, which we now have, the technology investment rate, the briefings we have, the communication systems we run, have allowed all our residents and members to be significantly better informed and get things done. And I want to say, I have an open door system. So has the chief executive. If people come to an impasse and have terrible problems and they can't, and I don't know what the hoops are that people have to jump through, Councillor, Well, having said that, no, you asked me the question and I'm answering you. And I have to tell you at the end of the day, to be quite honest, I go out regularly in this borough. And many people say to me and my colleagues, Labour has done a great job in this borough. So, and regarding the discussions about committee systems, I haven't spoken to any councillor about a committee system. This borough had a referendum in 2016, you'll all remember, and it chose to retain the mayoral and cabinet system. And it wouldn't be legal to change to a formal decision-making committee system without a referendum. And you can't have that until 2026. So there you are, Councillor.
The Bones, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Kirwan also said this week that we cannot continue with business as usual, referring to the tenure of this mayor. So it's no wonder that the mayor's chosen candidate is Councillor Clark. My question to the mayor is, how will she heal the civil war within the opposite group when Councillor Kirwan and his supporters find out what the rest of us already know?
Point of order, Chair. The question's got to arise from the original question. That supplementary does not arise from the original question.
Chair, the question directly referred to what the mayor said in her answer with regards to business as usual, and whether or not that the comments from Councillor Kirwan were relevant to the running of this council. They directly arise from what the mayor said.
Can I just say, Chair, I was asked my opinion. I've told you how I feel about it, to be quite honest. And at the end of the day, to be quite honest, we in our group, right, are not dictators. People have their own personal opinions. I don't tell my councillors, like perhaps you might do, what to think. They can say what they think. But having said that, I have a right to say what I think, surely. Thank you.
Thank you. We now move on to question 3 from Councillor Johnson. Do you wish to read your question out, or do you want to?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll ask a question. The single person council tax discount provides vital financial relief to individuals living alone by reducing their council tax by 25%. This helps ensure fairness, as council tax is usually based on the assumption of multiple contributors in the household. This discount is especially beneficial for those on low fixed incomes, such as pensioners or single parents. Can our mayor please reassure residents across North Tyneside that they will continue to receive their single personal council tax discount in the next financial year? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, all I'm going to say to you, you know fine well that this money comes from government. And to be quite honest, at the minute, we don't know what the situation is. And we haven't even started to prepare our budget. We have a number of priorities. We have to make some decisions. This will be, if the government decides not to do that, this will be one of our priorities. And when we come collate what we've got and what pressures we've got, we will consider that. But I cannot, at this present moment, guarantee, because I don't even know what position we are in finance. I'm just being honest. And I think there's another thing too, as well, as far as I'm concerned. I would never, ever say to you that I would want that to happen. I don't. But I have to actually be sensible and deal with whatever's in our area when it comes to finance. One of our priorities, yes, and we will deal with it accordingly when we're doing the budget.
Okay, Councillor Johnson, do you have?
Thanks for that, Mayor. Can I just sort of like on that, would you be willing to look at a local support scheme if the Chancellor does go ahead and make that decision? Sorry. So my question was around possibly setting up a local support scheme if the Chancellor does go ahead and make that decision. Would that be something that you would possibly consider?
Can I just say to you that I'm prepared to write to anybody to support our people here in North Tyneside. Can't guarantee, but I'm not ashamed to stand up for our people in North Tyneside. I'll write to anyone.
Okay. So, okay, that question's been answered. Question 4. Councillor Bones, do you wish to take your Do you wish to read your question out or do you want to take it as read?
I'll take it as read, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Carl Johnson, I believe you answered this.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure Councillor Bones knows this already, but as he should know, local plans can't be amended once they have been agreed, and they can only be replaced by a new local plan. The current new figure is 1,075 dwellings per annum. That is just an interim figure until the final figures have been published.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Johnson. Do you have a supplement, Councillor Bones?
Thank you, Chair. Labour's new National Planning Policy Framework consultation does have an uplift for North Tyneside over the coming years. I just wondered how confident the Cabinet member is that our current local plan will stand up within that and we won't have houses forced on us from government.
I think you remember the last Conservative government told our local authorities they would have to come up with a new local plan anyway. This council will have to come up with a new local plan in the next couple of years, and it will be on this new number of units. So people want to live in this borough, and if people want to live in this borough, and our people need houses, and we will ensure there's sufficient houses for those people to live here.
Thank you. Question 5, Councillor McAlpine, would you like to read your question or take it as read?
I'll read it. In light of the new NPPF consultation, can the Mayor assure my residents that Greenbelt land to the north of St Mary's Ward will continue to be protected from development?
Councillor Carl Johnson, I believe you answered this.
Chair will not play any area off against each other. It's a consultation from the government. The consultation hasn't finished yet. We don't know what the policy is going to be. Once we know what the policy is going to be, we'll look at all areas.
Thank you. Councillor McAlpine, do you have a further supplement?
Thanks. So can you give an indication of when residents will receive clarity on the future of the St Mary's Greenbelt and a commitment to transparency over all options being considered to satisfy any new housing target?
You'll have to write to the Secretary of State to find out in time scales, because I don't control what the Secretary of State does on the National Planning Policy Framework. As soon as any information is available, we'll ensure it's shared with all ward councillors and be completely open and transparent in this process all the way through.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. We now move to question 6. Councillor Bones, do you want to take a question as read or would you like to read it out? Okay, and Councillor Carl Johnson, I believe you'll answer this one again.
Thank you, Chair. Following the establishment of the North Tyne Combined Authority, new governance arrangements have replaced the previous regional transport governance structures of the Joint Transport Committee. As part of the new arrangements, measures being put in place to develop a new transport plan for the region. Engagement on the new transport plan is likely to commence before the end of 2024. And the Cobalt Corridor extension is identified with delivery as part of the pipeline schemes in the existing North East Transport Plan, alongside another number of other regional rail and metro projects as is cited in the North East Metro and Rail Strategy. The major schemes also referred to in our own strategic documents, notably the local plan and the transport strategy. As part of the proposed work to update the transport plan and the delivery plan, there have been a series of regional meetings to review the existing pipeline schemes, including the Cobalt extension. And this dialogue will help inform the agreed pipeline of schemes which forms part of the North East Transport Plan, which will be approved by a North East Mayor and Cabinet, which the Cobalt will very much be part of. New ways of funding projects will be explored in due course as the transport plan and associated pipeline schemes is developed through to March 2025.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Johnson. Do you have a supplement?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Does the Cabinet member agree with me that what our residents want to see isn't a fairy tale wish list, but is actually real delivery on transport projects? And will the Mayor write to the new North East Mayor to again make the case for the Cobalt link?
I think a fairy tale wish list is what your government came out with at the end of its conference last year, which fell apart quicker than any plan in local history. The Lean sideline we were getting one day and the next day we weren't getting. Embarrassing. We will always stand up for this borough. That's why the Cobalt line extension is going to be in the transport plan. That's why we will seek to have an East Coast mainline station in North Tyneside in the transport plan. That's why the ferry landing funding will come in the transport plan. We will always stand up for a borough. We've got successful results in the past and we'll continue to do so, Chair.
Thank you very much. We now move to question 7. Councillor J. Bartoli, would you like to take a question as read or would you like to read it out?
Please can the Cabinet member provide an update on works on the Coast Road, updated timescales and when it is now envisioned the road will return on to national speed limit?
Councillor Hannah Johnson, if you answer.
Thank you, Chair. The work to replace the crash barriers on the A1058, the Coast Road, commenced earlier earlier this year and is progressing to programme. The work is approaching completion and is expected to be finished in late October, subject to favourable weather. On completion of the works, a temporary speed limit from the Newcastle City Council boundary to Silverlink will be returned to the national speed limit. Thanks.
Thank you, and can I just get a reassurance that the plans were scrapped? A reassurance that the plans for the bus lane on the bus were scrapped?
Yes, there have been.
Yeah, just to be clear on that, we never had any plans. It was a Newcastle City Council plan. I presume the City Council has shelved that, but we would never allow a bus lane within North Tyneside.
Okay. Right, we'll move on to question 8. We've asked questions. Councillor 8, question 8, we've got Councillor McGinn. Would you like to take it as read or would you like to read the question?
I'd like to read it.
Okay.
Nicole Jacobs, the Domestic Abuse Commissioner, has raised serious concerns following the release of hundreds of domestic abuse perpetrators from prison before the end of their sentence. She said domestic abuse victims and survivors were particularly vulnerable because their perpetrators were more likely to have contact with them, know where they live and work, or know their family compared to other prisoners being freed. What additional work is being done by North Tyneside Domestic Abuse Partnership following the early release of hundreds of prisoners to ensure survivors of domestic abuse receive additional support and protection?
I believe Councillor Clark, your answer is.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor McGinty, for your question. I fully appreciate this issue is a real concern for victims of domestic abuse, which is a horrific and very, very complex crime. I welcome the opportunity to reassure victims of domestic abuse and the wider public that appropriate actions have been undertaken and necessary measures have been put in place to support and protect victims of domestic abuse in North Tyneside. Firstly, I've just got a couple of issues with the way the question is presented, Councillor McGinty. I think it's a little bit misleading and there might be some confusion over the terminology used. I think the Commissioner did voice her concern about the potential of prisoners with a history of domestic abuse being released early from their sentence. However, to be clear, no prisoner currently serving a sentence for domestic abuse crime is eligible for release, early release under this scheme. So it's just to be clear what we're actually talking about there. And also you state that she expressed her concerns following the release of hundreds of domestic abuse perpetrators from prison before the end of their sentence. I'm not aware that we know how many perpetrators of domestic abuse have actually been released before the end of their sentence, given that anyone serving a domestic abuse crime is not eligible for release under this scheme. As we know, the early release scheme was introduced by our new government as an urgent and temporary response to the prison overcrowding crisis, an issue that the previous Conservative government has failed to address during the 14 years they were in power. Again, to be clear, it reduces the standard time served in prison to 40% of a sentence rather than 50%. So we're talking about prisoners who are due to be released soon anyway. So that's just putting it into the context. The UK government have confirmed exemptions under the scheme and has stated there'll be no early release for offenders serving a sentence for a domestic abuse crime. And that sentences for serious violent offences of 4 years or more, as well as sex offences, will be automatically excluded. Anyone released will be strictly monitored on licence by the probation service through measures which can include electronic tagging and curfews. They face being recalled to prison if they breach their licence conditions. In North Tyneside, members of the Domestic Abuse Partnership have considered the implications of the early release scheme and any impact it may have on victims of domestic abuse in the borough. In relation to the number of prisoners released in North Tyneside, again, to be clear, we've certainly not had high numbers, certainly not had hundreds. So just to be clear, the numbers released are very minimal, and all the measures have been reviewed and put in place to protect potential victims. The Local Resilience Forum nationally stood up its command structure in July 24 to manage the pressures on prison capacity and to coordinate the response to the early release scheme. In addition, North Tyneside Council stood up our internal local response group, attended by all case service leads and partners. This coordination provides a level of reassurance with partners and communities across the borough and the region, as all local risks and impacts have been identified and monitored throughout this process. And I can confirm that reporting and escalation mechanisms continue to be in place. The probation service is also playing a critical role in mitigating and managing risk connected to the release of offenders. Safeguarding and domestic checks are undertaken on all released offenders and protection plans will be put in place. All victims have been contacted and risk assessments undertaken. I emphasise anyone who breaches the licence conditions will be immediately recalled to custody. Ensuring that all victims of domestic abuse know where to access support remains a key priority nationally, but also for our local domestic abuse partnership. Importantly, the partnership will continue to promote the range of local advice and support services available for those at risk or who have suffered domestic abuse. Probation have confirmed that if any victim is worried, they should come forward and they will be offered the appropriate support. I hope these facts and updates provide reassurance to any victims of domestic abuse in North Tyneside and indeed to the wider North Tyneside residents. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you have a supplementary?
Do. The early release scheme is putting victims in danger as the victims are not being given enough notice. And could the Cabinet member please provide a briefing paper to the councillors outlining the work that has been done on this matter, please?
Thank you, Councillor McGuinty. I thought I just had provided a briefing on the work that's been done in relation to that. All risks are being looked at, are being reviewed, safeguarding procedures are being put in place, and all victims are being informed if there's any danger. If any victims have wider concerns, haven't been contacted or are worried that a perpetrator may be released from prison, they're being encouraged to come forward. But I don't have a problem circulating a briefing paper reflecting what I've just said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Clark. With that, I believe that brings us to the end of tonight's meeting. So can I just thank you all for your attendance? Thank you.